So let's talk about concentration, and just kind of bring people into the framework of the class. We've been talking about the Lam Rim, the gradual path to enlightenment within Tibetan Buddhism for 10, 11 or 12 weeks. And I think this week and next week will be the last class, and then we'll take a little break after that. And yeah, we'll see what happens after that. But anyway, so far my goal has been to inspire you to consider how we have this fortunate opportunity we have as human beings with leisure and opportunity to develop our positive qualities, abandon our negative ones, and eliminate not only our own suffering, but the suffering of all beings. So concentration is the basis for wisdom, but even in a worldly context, it's important. We need to have a focused and concentrated mind in order to drive a car, cook a meal, organize our day, do well in school, and perform countless tasks in daily life. On the spiritual path, though, concentration enables us to develop our practice so that we can achieve liberation from samsara and become fully enlightened. But it's also helpful at all the other stages of the Lam Rim, learning to be mindful of our body, our speech and mind during the day, and learning to calm and focus the mind so that we can develop insight, or vipassana in Sanskrit, insight into the nature of reality or emptiness. And once we realize emptiness, we can complete the accumulation of merit and wisdom, leading to our own liberation and enlightenment. One of the other frameworks for the path, the Buddhist path, is the division into the 3 higher trainings in ethics, concentration, and wisdom. Ethical discipline is the foundation, because without ethics, our lives are chaotic and unsettled. If we attempt to meditate, but we've created much ethical harm in our life, our subconscious mind causes us to be restless and anxious. It's impossible to relax because deep inside, we know when we've hurt others, and this results in much fear, unease, self-doubt, and so forth. All that negative energy bubbles to the surface as soon as we sit down. And so it's impossible to run away from our negative actions or take a drug and make them disappear. Our karmic deeds follow us like a shadow. Only through purification practice and committing to a life of virtue can we begin the process of settling the mind. So for concentration, we need ethics. In the same way, wisdom is impossible without concentration. We need a really stable mind to develop direct perception of emptiness, because the corrective view of emptiness is very subtle and requires a really stable mind over a sustained period of time. So here again, I have to offer a disclaimer. There are many other more qualified teachers than I on these topics, and both concentration and wisdom are vast topics, and there are very few who can explain them from their own realization. Nonetheless, even though I am a lazy practitioner with only a little bit of book knowledge, perhaps I can at least point you in the right direction. So it's really important to believe in our potential and not feel discouraged because maybe we think we're just a beginner. In fact, beginner's mind is often praised for its quality of open-mindedness, whereas someone with decades of experience may encounter many obstacles because they think they know everything already. And the practice can become rigid and formulaic when we forget to cultivate a fresh perspective. Everything comes back to having a balanced mind that is not too tight and not too loose. We need to develop concentration, not simply for when we sit down to meditate, but at all times. Otherwise, our mind is often distracted, engaged with delusions, and clinging to the appearances of this life, never thinking about how all phenomena within samsara are defined by the three characteristics, dukkha, anatta, anicca, which are the Sanskrit terms for suffering, impermanence, and emptiness. We need to cultivate mindfulness of these truths at all times in order to loosen the grip of ignorance on our mind. In order to practice concentration meditation, the traditional texts recommend going to a place blessed by great masters, deep in the forest or a high mountain cave, or a place where one isn't likely to be disturbed, where the environment is peaceful and quiet, and the requisites of survival are easily obtainable, perhaps by an attendant or a retreat helper. But most of us today need the support of a teacher before we undertake solitary retreat. Unless we are already an experienced meditator, going off on our own, perhaps with a personal fantasy of emulating Milarepa, we are more likely to just bring our own samsara with us or even put ourselves in danger. Going to a retreat center under the care of a qualified teacher is a better choice for most of us. And in the meantime, we have to make do with our own living space, often in an urban environment, sometimes with family and the presence of distractions. Meditating early in the morning is best because it's usually quiet at that time and our mind is fresh. If you feel sleepy, splash some cold water on your face. Carve out a small area in your living environment where you can sit quietly and turn off all your devices beforehand. As you continue to sit in the same place every day, over time, the energy will become more conducive to meditation. That cushion or that place in your room will start to infuse with the vibrations of your meditation. In order to develop concentration, we need to practice good posture during our sitting meditation. So the 7-point Vairocana posture is emphasized in the Lam Rim texts. One is advised to sit cross-legged on a cushion, ideally in the lotus posture. But most of my elder friends have difficulty sitting on a cushion or even kneeling on a meditation bench. I've discovered that with the right cushions to support the arch of the low back, a chair works just fine. And although not ideal due to the possibility of falling asleep, it is possible to meditate lying down. When you sit, the eyes should be either closed or open slightly to allow a little light in, but not focused on anything. The light is an antidote to drowsiness. It's also important to keep the spine straight, the neck relaxed and open, with the chin tucked slightly down, and that allows the energy to flow up the spine and prevents drowsiness, which often occurs if the shoulders are hunched up around the neck, which creates a kink in the energy channels and blocks the energy flow. The hands can be either on the knees or in the lap, the right hand resting in the left with the thumbs touching. The tongue should be lightly touching the roof of the mouth just behind the teeth, like this. So in Chinese medical theory, this connects the two channels which begin at the base of the torso, the conception channel, which runs up the abdomen and chest to the lower lip, and the governing channel, which runs up the center of the spine and the back, over the top of the head to the upper lip. And once these two channels are connected and the energy flows undisturbed by busy thoughts, what is called the microcosmic orbit is established, creating a sense of ease and even bliss, making it very easy to sit for longer periods. And I think the term in Tibetan is called pliancy. It's like your body feels like a ball of cotton. Having the thumbs touching also completes an energy circuit, keeping the subtle energy focused internally rather than dispersed into the external environment. So the Tibetan system uses different terminology than the Chinese system, but in the end, the goal is the same: to quiet the energy moving through the branch and peripheral channels of the body, and to bring the energy into the central channel, dissolving the blockages that create disturbances and prevent the development of subtle awareness. Calm abiding meditation, or shamatha in Sanskrit, shine in Tibetan, can result in the arising of feelings of great bliss in the mind. It can lead to special powers such as clairvoyance and such, but even non-Buddhists can achieve these and shouldn't be our primary goal. By itself, attaining shamatha, or perfect concentration, doesn't cause liberation and enlightenment. And if one is not careful, it's easy to lose the path here, to think one has freed the mind from samsara. During deep concentration, the gross manifestations of the delusions are temporarily suppressed when shamatha has been attained, but one still hasn't eliminated ignorance from the mind. Mastering concentration without developing insight only results in being born in the God realm, which may sound wonderful, but eventually that karma is exhausted and one is likely to be reborn in one of the lower realms of intense suffering. So once you've established the 7-point Vairochana posture to the best of your ability, then one recites prayers of refuge, bodhicitta, 4 immeasurables, 7 limbs, mandala offering, and requesting inspiration. This creates the merit for achieving realizations and ensures that your practice is guided by the correct motivation. In Buddhism, we don't pray for a deity to make our problems go away. We pray in order to remind us of where we are going and how to get there. It's just a roadmap, in a sense, a very condensed version of the entire path. It is true, we do ask for blessings and inspirations from the Buddha to achieve realizations. The intent isn't to escape our personal responsibility, though, but to open ourselves to the wisdom of the Buddhas and to our own inner Buddha nature. There are 9 stages in shamatha practice. So once again, you can study these in detail in many different texts like Geshe Sopa's Volume 4 commentary in the Lam Rim, or Yangtze Rinpoche's commentary in the Lam Rim, Practicing the Path. And in essence, though, the process works like this as far as I can explain it. So first, one chooses an object to focus on during meditation. So there's a variety of objects you can choose, such as an image of the Buddha or the rise and fall of the breath. A more experienced meditator may choose to focus on the conventional nature of the mind, its clarity and reflective knowing capacity. And very adept practitioners may focus on the ultimate nature of the mind, its emptiness as an object. This assumes that one has developed a valid conceptual understanding of what that actually means. Emptiness is not nothingness. We'll talk more about this next week. Regardless of which object one chooses, it's important to choose one object and not change it during your meditation, unless you need to temporarily apply an antidote to one of the obstacles that may arise. Also, one can meditate on love or metta in Pali. This can be a powerful healing antidote, especially if the mind is habituated to anger. In the beginning, the mind will wander a lot and get caught up in distractions, losing focus on the object. One needs to develop 2 important mental qualities in order to progress through the 9 stages of shamatha. One is mindfulness, which in this context means remembering the object of meditation and applying antidotes to the obstacles as needed. We have to remember the object, or else we forget and get lost in distractions or sleepiness. The other quality is introspective alertness, which is described as posting a sentry or a spy in one corner of the mind that occasionally checks and determines whether the mind is still focused on the object. If introspective alertness discovers that one of the obstacles of concentration has arisen, then it's important to cultivate the appropriate antidote. So there are 5 obstacles described. The first is laziness, and then forgetting the instructions, mental sinking and excitement, which together count as the third. Fourth is not applying the antidotes to sinking and excitement. And last is applying the antidotes when they aren't needed. So the central task of the practice is learning how to recognize and overcome mental sinking and mental excitement. Sinking is when the mind is dull and the object of meditation loses clarity. In the extreme, the mind gets sleepy. If you notice the mind becoming dull and fuzzy and no longer focused on the meditation object, there are several possible antidotes, such as imagining breathing in brilliant white light, which fills your entire head and body. One needs to tighten the focus and strengthen the object of meditation. In extreme cases, it may be better to end the meditation session and resume later. This underscores the importance of getting enough sleep. So there's a little bit of a dilemma or a catch-22 increasingly in today's world. Insomnia is a problem for many people, and they don't get enough sleep, and the sleep that they do get may not be good quality sleep. And this is often due to living stressful, hectic lives and having minds that are dominated by mental afflictions such as anger, frustration, attachment, desire, worry, fear, and so forth. Meditation and Dharma reflection can help all these psychological problems, but we need proper sleep in order to meditate well. On the other hand, if we wait until we feel completely relaxed and refreshed before we meditate, we may get stuck in laziness, which is the first obstacle, and never get to our meditation practice. So we really need to be patient and just start where we are at, slowly developing our mind, believing in ourselves, and not expecting overnight results. I used to hear stories of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, when I lived in Dharamsala. He would regularly retire for sleep at around 8:30 p.m. and rise by 2:30 in the morning. And according to Chinese medicine, the lungs operated at their peak energy between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., which makes it an ideal time for meditation. But most of us haven't mastered our subtle energy flow and live busy worldly lives. We require a lot more rest than a meditation master like His Holiness. And so the best time to meditate is realistically whenever we can fit it into our schedules. Long meditation sessions aren't important, especially at the beginning. Maybe we have time for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but even doing 5 minutes every morning and evening is far better than doing 45 minutes once or twice a week. The consistency in practice is what plants the seed of meditation deeply in our lives. So meditation sinking or laxity, as it's also referred to, can be gross or subtle. Mental excitement can also be gross or subtle. Obviously, the subtle forms of these two are more difficult to recognize. When introspective alertness notices dullness or sinking, we must retighten the focus on the object of meditation. It may even be helpful to do a brief reflection on the preciousness of human rebirth and the benefits of attaining calm abiding before returning to our principal meditation object. Excitement occurs when the mind is easily distracted, losing the meditation object in daydreams and ruminations. When we notice this, we must strengthen the function of introspective alertness that sees the distractions lurking in the background. If we fail to counteract subtle mental excitement, it will transform into gross mental excitement. Another technique for quieting the monkey mind that jumps from thought to thought and story to story is to shift the object of awareness, observing the impermanence of thoughts. The thoughts are like clouds floating through the infinite sky of the mind. The clouds come and go. The sky that contains them is undisturbed by their passing, just as awareness remains undisturbed by thought. Practicing in this way is helpful for learning to let go of thoughts instead of our usual habit of chasing after them and chaining ourselves more strongly to the stories that they generate. When we talk about concentration and meditation, most people picture someone sitting quietly with eyes closed. However, it's critically important to remember that formal sitting meditation is only one aspect of our daily practice. If we spend 30 minutes out of every day doing sitting meditation, but let the mind run wild the other 23 hours and 30 minutes, then we aren't going to get very far in our practice. The quality of our sitting meditation influences our practice during the rest of the day and vice versa. So I'll stop there and breathe for a minute and invite any thoughts, conversation, questions. It's a lot of theory. The mind is quite complex, and it's quite a task, I think, to extract ourselves from our samsara and taming our monkey mind, let alone, realizing emptiness and achieving liberation. And so, it's important to have a balance of theory and practice.